Warning, in this video you're going to see me being a complete dumbass. I won't be doing any diagnostics until the very end. I'm going to do the classic mistake of just believing what other people say and trusting that perhaps my reversing lights not working occasionally is going to be the reversing light switch in the shifter housing. Well, as it turns out, that's not the problem at all. And the problem is in an area where I would have never even suspected looking had I have not looked at the circuit diagram. Enjoy the video. Of course it doesn't do it now. Why would it? So allegedly on these early 722.6s that use this kind of shifter housing without the Tiptronic style function, they have a common failure where the reverse lights stop working. You get the reverse lights bulb out failure warning on the instrument cluster, and there's nothing actually wrong with the bulbs, and it may or may not be an intermittent fault. That's what I've got. I've got an intermittent fault on this car. It needs to not happen when I'm getting it inspected for registration purposes, otherwise it's just going to fail instantly. So allegedly it's the switch that is in here that detects the position of the stick here, and it also turns on the reverse lights. It's a very underwhelming part. It looks like something you'd order off AliExpress, but it is definitely genuine MB. It's just a sign of how crap things became in that era. I'll get that open and show you what that looks like. So that's what the switch looks like. As I mentioned, extremely underwhelming. It is so light, you can barely even feel it in your hand. And presumably the shaft goes in this section here, and that's what moves it. And you can see also R, so that must be the reverse position there, which operates some switch. I'm not even going to bother looking at the manual for this. It looks pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this thing opened up and see how hard it is. Let's see if I don't need the manual. Damn, this thing's so cheap and nasty. So all I did was remove that bezel around the shifter housing. You just lift it straight up. Perhaps you might need a pry tool. I just used my fingernails. It's these tabs around the edge that actually grip onto that. I took the knob off as well, which is twisting the collar here, and then the whole thing just pops off. I don't know if that's necessary yet. It probably is. I suspect I need to get inside here. And this wood piece, it just lifts straight up. It's just clipped in. No screws required. And there's two connectors on mine at least. There may be more on yours. This is a CAN bus version car, so it's only got the one connector basically here. The ones with the airbag light, there is another connector at the bottom there. I've used the late style wood because it's virtually impossible to get the early style in decent condition, and I've just painted or sanded and painted that thing there for the sun airbag, I should say, not sunroof, airbag light, and painted it black. So that was a good solution at the time. So presumably I'm going to need to open this thing up. I suspect that is all just clipped together. I'll go ahead and get that open, and then we can see how it went together. So on closer inspection, the switch is actually replaced from underneath, and I'm sure some people were screaming at the TV or phone when I said, oh yeah, it'll be easy. So this center console on my car at least will have to come out. I don't know if it's the same on all, but as you can see, the Allen-headed bolts are accessible on this side for the shifter, but on this side they are not. They are obstructed by the air vent that goes or ductwork that goes to the rear vents. To remove the center console, I've loosened or removed the screws for the ashtray so it can slip out from underneath that. There's 2 screws here, and there's also 2 screws hiding underneath that rather disgusting carpet there, and there's little covers that go over the screw holes as well. It's going to be a good opportunity to clean this shit show out. So I'm going to remove this and you'll see what it looks like out of the car in the next shot. I've also taken the liberty of removing this rear cover. I'm not sure it's 100% necessary, but anything to make the job easier, I guess. I used my plastic spudger, and you can see it clips in at the top there and it hooks in at the bottom. So the top comes down and then you just lift it out. And astonishingly, for crappy 210 plastics, it did not explode, but I would not like to flex that too much because those tabs probably will snap off at some stage. So only one piece of advice, I would recommend actually removing that ashtray because that was quite a battle getting that to clear the center console, getting it out, because it actually has to unhook over these things, so this thing really needs to be out of the way. But I got there in the end. It's not ideal, but yeah, get that out first. And what in God's name is that growing in there? That's got to be some kind of beverage that spilled through these quote-unquote cup holders. So it's a good thing that I'm getting this out because I'm going to clean that. That is absolutely disgusting, whatever that is. Yuck. And that center ductwork, well, that just unclips, so I'm getting that out and I'm going to disinfect it. So yeah, that's all out of the way, and I have great access to the shifter housing now. And all of this crap is going to have to be cleaned out because there's more of that filth that's gotten in there. I think some farm animals must have owned this car before because it's really quite disgusting when you start getting things disassembled. Yeah, I'm going to get all of that cleaned before I progress any further because I just find that grotesque. Right, so I have unscrewed the 4, I think 5mm Allen head screws around the perimeter of that shift housing. And I've also unplugged 3 connectors. There's 2 that go into that switch assembly and there's 1 that goes on the side here. Now, as is typical for Benz's, well, forever, they've got a linkage rod that goes down to the transmission. I just have to unclip that clip and secure that rod somehow so it's not going to disappear down there. And then this shift housing I can go and refurbish inside the house in comfort instead of sitting in the sweltering vehicle. So I've just got this little hook and yeah, the extension on my ratchet is holding that there nicely, and even if that drops, well, it's not that hard to get it back up anyway. You can actually fish it out through that hole. So now I'm free to go work on this thing in comfort and clean it up so it looks brand new. Because I just love doing stuff like that. I don't like stuff looking old and crappy, so let's go ahead and get this opened up inside the house. So this thing is now open. I just used plastic pry tools around the perimeter to release all of the clips, and you can see that switch where it sits in there. Now this thing is quite dirty. It looks like it has had something spilt in it, so I will be cleaning this while it's apart as well. So there's something interesting. This WS switch isn't even really a switch. All it's doing is moving this post up and down. And that's operating a couple of, one lever on that same switch assembly that's doing the shift positions. I did not know that. I thought this was a real switch, but it's not. So you're getting everything basically new, the WS switch and the shift switch all in that one assembly. Here's a closer look of that switch in action, and you can see what it's actually doing. So this is now assembled. I can just drop this back into the housing. It actually just came out from the top. I didn't have to do any further disassembly. Just flexing the housing around this bit here, and then the whole thing unhooks out. It was actually really easy. All right, so this has taken an embarrassing amount of time to get back together. Just be aware that with my thumb on that bushing there, that has to be pointing in the downwards position with this thing like that. And the shaft also needs to be slotted in the correct position. It is possible to actually slot that in the wrong position, as in have it in the wrong groove, and then the whole thing just jams up and you've got to pull it apart again. So pay very close attention to this arrangement on this side. And this thing, make sure that is pointing downwards. It has locating teeth to lock into in the bottom housing. Now I can put it back together, and I'm pretty sure it's going to work now. So there you have it. That is now back together. Just go ahead and make sure that that lever can go into every single position before you fit it back to the car, because that's how you know if you've put it together right. If anything is not right, it's just going to jam up. So now I can actually move it into every position, thankfully, and yeah, it's working now. I'm just going to go ahead and test the reverse switch while I've got this out, which is that 2-pin connector at the bottom. That should be basically a closed switch when it's in the reverse position. So I'll go ahead and try that, and I'll show you what the actual thing looks like on the inside as well on the microscope. So this is what that early version 722.6 shifter switch looks like. This is that W&S switch, as I showed you previously. It's just got 2 wipers there. But if the switch itself is jammed up, it's going to be something to do with that plastic housing, probably having some kind of drink spilled into it. And this is what tells the transmission controller what position the handle has been put into, and that's also an arrangement with wipers on there, shorting out the top rail to one of those bottom positions. And I'll show you the reverse switch. It's actually inside the other housing. So this is the other half of that housing, and out of interest, I will show you what the contacts look like under the microscope, and you'll see why liquid ingress is bad. So that is the reverse contact under the microscope. You can see I'm actuating it there, and you can see there's quite a bit of junk between those 2 contacts. That's just going to be like drink residue. This is not going to be a high current circuit like this. I doubt is going to be switching the lamps directly, although it might be. I haven't actually looked at the circuit diagram. But this, yeah, any crap that gets between these contacts is going to increase resistance and stop your rear lights or reversing lights from lighting up and throw up that bulb out warning on the instrument cluster. You could probably clean this. I mean, this wasn't actually that hard to disassemble, this switch, and the contacts realistically don't look that bad. So this thing could be saved. Just be aware when it opens up, things might go flying. Like a spring did go flying out of this thing and I haven't found it. So just be opening it up in a controlled environment so you can catch that spring when it flies out. I haven't put a great deal of effort into looking for it, but my desk is extremely messy and yeah, it would be a nightmare trying to find it. Just as a proof of concept, I was actually able to put this thing back together, and I did find that spring on the floor. So yes, you could actually service this and save yourself $200 from buying a new one. I'm not going to throw this away now that I know it's actually pretty easy to service. I've cleaned that reverse contact as well, and that's working fine, and everything's moving around the way it's supposed to. I'll keep it spare, just in case I happen to spill a drink all over the other one, but that's highly unlikely. I don't drink or eat in my cars anyway. So yeah, don't actually have to throw these out. You can fix them. Now, before I put all of this interior back together, Let's go ahead and test this so I don't end up dropping more F-bombs than the internet is ready for. As it turns out, that wasn't the problem, because it's still doing it. And I have confirmed the switch is operational with my multimeter, and I've even completely bypassed it, and the rear lights, or the reverse lights, still don't light up. So there is some lighting control module somewhere that is defective. I'm going to have to find it. So I'm going to have to study the circuit diagram. So there will probably be a part 2 to this video. Sadly, this is an issue that arose from me just trusting what I read online and not actually doing any diagnostics. So there you go. If you just search for answers online and not do any testing yourself, you're likely going to throw parts at a problem and not even fix it. So as it turns out, there was probably nothing wrong with that switch. I mean, it looks like it has had some liquid spilled in there, and at least I've cleaned out the center console. But the mystery continues. Now, if you know where that lighting control module is that operates those reverse lights, and can tell me before I find it in the circuit diagram, let me know. For now, I've kind of lost interest for today. I might have another go at this tomorrow. I just want to put this back together because I'm happy with how I've cleaned things up, and I just want to see what it looks like. In the meantime, I now have no reversing lights at all. So pulling this apart has in fact made it worse, because now it never works at all. But that switch is definitely working. As it turns out, the light control module is actually the headlight switch, and that also has the fuses for the various exterior lights. Nonetheless, I'm glad I've had this center console out and cleaned it up, and I'm not going to put it in until I've changed over this rear section of the carpet, because I do have the correct version now, which has cleaned up nicely. So there you have it. I looked in completely the wrong place, and here is a demonstration. So it is either the fuse contacts or whatever the contacts are connected to, possibly a circuit board with crack soldering. Moving the fuse around, I can see the voltage for the lights appearing and disappearing.